Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jason Wise, the owner of the Portland Breakers. Here in the 20-team USFL Fantasy Football League, I bring to you the Week 10 highlights along with the Week 11 previews. So let's get it underway. First of all, in a very important battle, the New York City Hitmen, which I consider the game of the week, came out on top against a tough Philadelphia Stars team. Terry, with that win, they've now won 2 in a row, been able to keep pace with the red-hot Washington Federals. Speaking of those Federals, they got definitely the best of the New Jersey Generals last week, 26.5 to 19.9. As I said, the Federals, one of the hottest teams in the league, won 4 in a row. When they stood at 3-3, people wondering what was wrong with Washington. Well, we've gotten the answer to that. Absolutely nothing. Won 4 in a row, 7-3, sitting atop of the Atlantic. Next up, the Memphis Showboats absolutely bounced back from that upset loss to Portland last week. And unfortunately for Brian Tracy and his Bandits, absolutely crushed them, 40.5 to 16.8. Memphis is, right there, getting ready for the playoffs and trying to come on strong to get some momentum to going into the playoffs. Next up, best team in the league by far. Phil Wolfong and his Bulls eked out. It was a tough one. The Renegades are a tough team, just coming up a little bit short, but Jacksonville wins a close one, 20.2 to 18.6 over Orlando. And there wasn't really many upsets of last week, but definitely one of them, and I would consider it the upset of the week. Jake Matthews and his San Antonio Gunslingers get past the Chicago Blitz, 28.9 to 22.1. And with that, they have basically at least kept their playoff hopes alive. They're arguably in the toughest division in top to bottom in our USFL Fantasy Football League, and at 4-6 in last place. But don't count them out. They still can get it going, get on a winning streak, and make some noise. El Briscoe and the Express, that train just keeps rolling. And he's been doing it ever since he became the owner. And get the win over the Hard Luck Denver Gold, 28.3, 13.4. Express now in a tie first in the Pacific. And who are they tied with? Well, the Arizona Wranglers. Why? Well, Arizona got Kevin Perilou and the Wranglers got a big win over Mike Lazziotti and the Oakland Invaders, 31 to 20.3. And with that win, the Wranglers were able to keep pace with the aforementioned Express. Mark Niemi and Michigan Panthers, it kind of goes a little bit under the radar, but as the defending champ, he's right there in the thick of everything. Gets another win. It was a hard-fought win over a very game Pittsburgh Maulers team that I think is better than that 2-8 record. But Michigan gets to win 26.1 to 23.6. And yours truly, owner of the Portland Breakers, also another hard-fought win. Birmingham Stallions, they're having a tough season, but I know Henry and Brett that they're gonna put their heads together during the off season and make some moves. They're going to be back next year, but got the win over Birmingham, 21.3 to 18.3, and you'll in this league you'll always take a win. Doesn't matter how, it's just a win. And go over in the standings. We'll start in the Atlantic, as I'd said. The Federals are hot, won 4 in a row. They're in first place, 7-3. New York Hitmen right behind them at 6-4. Philadelphia still very much in the thick of things. John Pahala, his team will be right there in the end. They're 5-5. Pittsburgh and New Jersey bringing up the rear, just playing out the season at 2-8. Top 2 teams in the league, they reside in the Southern Division. Jacksonville 9-1. They've won 5 in a row. They're red hot. Memphis, like I said, got cooled off the week before against Portland, but came back and got the win. They're 8-2. Birmingham 4-6. Tampa Bay 3-7. Orlando 2-8. These are definitely spoiler teams. In the Central, arguably the toughest division, top to bottom in this league. With the wins, Oklahoma and Michigan They are at 7-3 in the division and leading the division. Gamblers and Blitz just one game back at 6-4. And like I said, Jake Matthews, Gunslingers are 4-6. I'm telling you, if he was in any other division, he would probably have a winning record. I'm most assured of that. And in the Pacific Division, as I'd said, El Briscoe's Express and Paralou's Wranglers, LA and Arizona at 6-4. Yours truly sitting at 5-5. I'd like to have a better record, but you know what? It's 500. I'm still in the thick of the playoff race and fighting for one of the top 8 spots. And Oakland's still right nipping at my heels at 4-6. So anything's possible. And like the hardest luck team this year, Denver, Michael Rutt and the Gold, just having a hard season at 1-9. So there are your standings. And with that, obviously there's going to be some very interesting matchups this week. You know, the playoff, we're getting down the stretch, the last 3 weeks of the regular season. Playoff picture's beginning to take a little bit of a form. Top 8's really beginning to crystallize. And so every game becomes that much more critical in terms of who you sit, who you start, strategies, who you're playing against. It all matters. Every point counts. And we're all going for the same thing. We're either trying to, A, win the championship if we get in that top tier, or B, we want to play the spoiler and ruin somebody else's season. So speaking of that, in terms now we'll go into a little bit of the Week 11 previews, and I'm going to add a little bit something to this to kind of add a little bit in terms of breaking it down. 3 games I'm going to break down specifically. One's going to be the game of the week. Another one's going to be the underdog of the week. Basically the biggest long shot. And then another one's going to be the upset, who we're going to prognosticate that might just, like I said, kind of ruin someone else's week and maybe begin to play a little bit of a spoiler even before the playoffs get here. Game of the week, it was a hard choice, but we went ahead and Matt and I put our heads together, and Matt kind of helped, give me the ideas as far as these games that I'm going to highlight in terms of breaking them down a little bit more. So a lot of this is with Matt's input. So I just want to say, Matt, thank you very much for doing so. Game of the week, very important matchup in the Atlantic. The New York City Hitmen going into Washington to play the Red Hot Federals. There's a lot riding on this game. If the Hitmen can win, they'll force a first place tie. And basically, could be sitting pretty and trying to win that division. You win the division, you're definitely going to get a top 8 spot. They lose, though. They're in danger of dropping out of the top 8. And obviously, Washington's a very, very, very tough opponent every single week. Look, they're so close in every matchup. I mean, everybody knows that Tina brings her New Orleans connection. Breeze, Kamara, and Thomas, they might be the difference. But however, New York City Hitmen have Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey, and they're going against Detroit. And the last time the Lions had a good defense, right. All right, so that's going to be an interesting matchup, to say the least. And again, a lot riding on that game. Next one, the underdog of the week, and I mentioned it a little bit in the you're going over the previews. Denver's a hard luck team. They're 1-9, but I'm going to tell you what, they battle, they bring it every week. Just sometimes you just come up a little bit short and it's frustrating, but you keep plugging away. And it just so happens that they play my team. They play Matt and I. They play the Breakers this week, and I'm going to tell you what, that's definitely a trap game for us. We're definitely not taking them lightly. They would love to play spoiler and say, "Screw you, Portland. We're not going anywhere, and we want to make sure you don't either." So they're going to have it out for us, and we're good with that. We're definitely not taking them lightly. We're preparing for them as if they were 9-1 or a really good team, and as if our playoff lives depend on it. Because the truth is, it really does. So that's going to be actually, I think, more of an interesting game than most people might realize, and we're not taking Denver lightly for 1 second. So now we come to the upset of the week. So Who do you think is going to just be tumbling down this week and being like, oh, where did that come from? Well, we put our heads together, Matt and I, and we came up and we thought that the Showboats might be primed for another upset. They're going to play their arch rival, their division arch rival, the Orlando Renegades. Again, another team that I think is better than their record indicates. And why do we think the Renegades could beat the Showboats? Well, Orlando just played Jacksonville, the best team in the league record-wise. Very tough last week, lost by less than 2 points. So they're going to come ready to play. They're not afraid to play, against anybody. They're going to play tough against anybody. Again, this is another trap game for Memphis. A team, maybe they're just, right now taking a little bit lightly. Maybe just, who knows, just not coming ready to play. But they could be susceptible to another letdown. And I think a team like Orlando could be the perfect team to make that happen. And in terms of some, the players, Blake Bortles, he's a good quarterback, but he's playing against a tough Steelers team that is really they're hitting their stride right now, and that defense is kicking ass and taking some names right now. So, and no one's ever, accused Jacksonville of having, having a great offense anyways. So that could be an interesting play in terms of how well he really does against the Steelers, I believe, in Pittsburgh. Dak Prescott going for the Renegades. He had a great game last week against Philadelphia, and maybe he is hitting his stride. And I think the Cowboys picking up Amari Cooper, that was big. And you could see in the way that they were playing against Philadelphia, Dak Prescott, he's not necessarily the type of quarterback that's going to make everybody else around him so much better. But you give him some weapons, and he's getting some weapons, and they're starting to get productive. And that's an interesting play against him, against the Falcons. And another interesting tidbit about that game is the Falcons' defense is second to last in fantasy points allowed by opposing quarterbacks. So again, Dak Prescott could have a great game against Atlanta, and that shift between those two right there could make all the difference in why we think there's a good chance Orlando just might upset Memphis. Other games, you've got the Maulers, 2-8 going into Philadelphia. Stars definitely need that game for their playoff lives. Jacksonville, hottest team in the league, 9-1, going into Birmingham, should take care of business against the 4-6 Stallions. Another interesting game. Oklahoma Outlaws, top of the Central Division at 7-3, playing against San Antonio in last place. And I'm going to tell you what, this is another one. This was another game that we kind of thought maybe could be, a little bit more of an upset, and I think it still could be. If you look at the projections out in this game, it's almost a dead heat. Neither owner is a fan of the head coach or the defensive player positions. Why? I don't know. All the slots are there. Use them to the best of your ability. And the thing about it is, their projections, if they come out to be the way that it is projected, it could be one of those two spots that actually could be the difference between a win or a loss. So, every point counts, make them all count, and make the best use of every position you have. So that's going to be an interesting matchup, and Jake would definitely love to get the win and really try to get back in the thick of things, because he absolutely needs that game for his playoff life. And even if he doesn't do it, even if he doesn't make the playoffs, to go and start winning, that means he's playing spoiler to other teams, and I know he would love to do that. Michigan Panthers, another one, play at Houston. Houston 6-4, Michigan 7-3. Michigan would love to win that game, put some distance between them and anybody they can in their division. And Houston, if they win, they're at least going to be tied for second, and depending on what happens to the Oklahoma-San Antonio game, could be in first place if they beat Michigan. Another interesting one, man, the Blitz and the Wranglers. That's so much riding on the game. That game screams we're both trying to get in the top 8, and whoever wins that game definitely strengthens their position. Arizona, tied with the Express, obviously wants to win. Just keep rolling. If you're winning, everything's good. The Blitz had that letdown loss against San Antonio last week, and they definitely don't want to get on a losing streak right now. Absolute worst time to do it. Very interesting game out in the desert of Arizona. I'm very interested to see what happens, especially because Arizona's in my division. Oakland Invaders, 4-6. They've been very competitive. They're another team kind of like San Antonio, fighting for their playoff lives, yet at the same time would love to play spoiler to somebody else. Goes to L.A. to play the Briscoes Express. That train wants to keep rolling, 6-4. Woo, woo, get another win. And again, the last game of the week, like I said, Denver, even though they're 1-9, they're another one of those teams. Absolute spoiler. So Matt and I with the Breakers, we're definitely going to come ready to play because that's not going to be an easy win to say the least. Don't forget to vote on the league poll regarding the team quarterback usage possibly for next season. I looked at that before I was making this video and these highlights. I'd say there's about 5 owners or so left to vote. So please make sure you do that so we can get the results of that and figure out where we're going to go with that. And trade deadline is tomorrow at noon Eastern. That means all trades must be both proposed and accepted. So basically by tomorrow noon, all trades must be accepted in order to be able to be processed. So that deadline is tomorrow. If you have anything, any kind of moves you want to make right now, you do it. Reach out to someone and say, hey, so let's, if you do it, let's get this done and over with because after tomorrow at noon, no more trades for the season. Hey, sorry this is a little bit long. Just wanted to get everything in, trying to get a little bit more comfortable with all this as far as giving the highlights. Guys, have a great week. Like I said, this is such a pivotal week in terms of playoff positioning, spoiler positioning, so much going on, so much fun. Like I said, everybody have fun. Great week to you all, and good luck to everybody. Talk to you later.